Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of The Development Show. My name is Chad and I'll be your host. And if you haven't tuned in before, this is a show where we talk about the latest developments, how you can invest in them. And today we are going to be discussing a new development down in Cape Town called Stonewood Village Homes. And this is within the Stonewood estate. Today I'm joined by Rowan Alexander, who is the founding member and director of Alexander Swart Property Group. Rowan, how are you doing today?
Good, Chad. Nice to have you guys here.
Nice to be chatting to you, Rowan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to launch into a question I like to ask all the people who join us on the show, and that is, can you tell us a bit about yourself? Tell us about Alexander Swart Property Group, and also tell us what a customer can expect if they decide to go through this journey with you.
Well, Chad, thanks. Alexander Swart Property Group, we've been around for about 3 years as a brand. Prior to that, we were part of a national corporate brand for a number of years. We've evolved into our own brand and our own space. And we do second-hand sales as well as new developments. New developments is one of our core focuses. To give you an idea, to date, we've sold, I think, about 23 different residential developments in excess of 1,200 properties on a development side, with a total value of close to 1.5 billion rand. So development sales is something that we are very strong in, and it's something that we pride ourselves in. So, having different developments at different points in time, we usually cover quite a broad spectrum as to, the market, as to what people are looking for. And we are predominantly based in the northern suburbs of Cape Town. That's our stomping ground. That's where we like to find ourselves.
I love speaking to people who are real development specialists. You've been doing this for such a long time, and I think a lot of people tuning in as well are also quite keen to get insights of people who have been specializing in developments for such a long time and selling them, because really you've got all the knowledge around it. And today we're speaking about Stonewood Village Estate. So tell us a bit about that one.
Okay, so Stonewood Village Homes within the Stonewood Estate. Awesome product of ours. The developers are Trinity Projects, builders are Brick and Board, and us as agents, Alexander Swart. So we've got a very strong team on the project. We launched about a year ago. We have 106 homes, all townhouses, single stories. Everything is 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, double garages, and it's within a security estate. So in the northern suburbs of Cape Town, there's a lot of sectional title developments happening at the moment, and quite a bit of duplexes, sort of as well. So with a product like Stonewood, the village homes, where everything is on a single level at around the 2 million rand price mark, there's not a lot of competition for the development. So we've seen that in our rate of sale. I think we're currently on our phase 5, which would take us to about 90 out of the 106 homes. In a space of about 11 months. Considering that we've been through COVID and the lockdown and all of that, I think it's a phenomenal task. That shows that the development is very well suited to the market. So 3 bedrooms, double garage, 2 bathrooms within a security estate, all on a single level. That's sort of the basis of the development.
When it comes to construction of these developments, is there something that people should know, or are all these developments almost the same? So if I was going to purchase into a development, are there questions that you would say, hey, Chad, listen, you should actually ask these questions around who constructed it, how they constructed it, who the construction companies were, or in South Africa, are all the developments almost the same?
No, I think that's one of the things where the market needs education, is that there are brands and developments to follow. I mean, we all know and understand that if you buy clothing or you buy a vehicle or you buy something else, there's certain brands, which reflect certain values. And it's the same in the development space. There's almost this perception that if I buy a house, if I buy a new house, it's supposed to be the best construction, the best finishing, the best workmanship, irrespective of what price I pay or who I buy from. Whereas in reality, as there is with every other product in life, property is exactly the same. So one needs to be very mindful of who the developer is, who the builder is. It's obviously difficult if you're only going through this process, once or twice in your lifetime. But there are certain things that you can look out for. I always recommend to clients, irrespective of who the developer is, there's a number of ways that you can check, their credibility and whether is a project where you should be investing. I think the first thing that you can try and look at is the developer's past record. So with a lot of new developers coming up, especially in times like these, where the market is quite buoyant in the development space, you'll often find that new developers enter the market. So it's difficult to find a track record. It's difficult to establish whether the work that they do is of good quality or not. So be wary when it is someone new. I'm not saying that new entrants into the market, can't provide quality products, but looking at someone's track record, looking at, the sort of value that they leave on the table, are those developments that they've done, are those clients happy? Have they received good capital growth? How do those projects look like a number of years down the line? Were they actually completed? One of the things that we see quite often in development space is that a product is sold with a certain value add. There's going to be certain infrastructure put in and upgrades done and clubhouses built and stuff like that. The very first purchaser pays and contributes towards that, but they wait 5 to 10 years for that to actually happen. So another way for you to actually gauge whether you're working with a strong and a good reputable developer is someone who will actually add that value up front. So they'll complete the guardhouse and the open spaces and the clubhouse and all the communal facilities up front, so that the very first person who moves in actually has access to everything that he's paid for. Okay, so that's another way to check. And then lastly, I think, or another two ways, I think one of the ways that you can do is you can look at their documentation. We find that good developers often have very good documentation. It's very comprehensive, it will be complete. You'll have all your plans, all your specifications, all your guarantees and stuff up front, so it won't leave you guessing as to the position that you're in. And then lastly, I think one of the best tips that I could give is go and drive around on site and have a look at site. It's actually scary how much information you could gather on site. That a site that is well maintained, cleaned up every day, is presentable and under control, often relates to, or almost always relates to, a good quality product. A construction site that is sort of haphazard and material working or lying around and the site is dirty, that's very often an indicator of a substandard quality product. And then ultimately, if you don't have the time or the energy to go through that process, you need to try and hook up with an agent in an area that is known to do development sales, and just bounce that off them and get their inputs. Even if I'd like to believe that if that agent is helpful in serving the market, that he would give that input irrespective of whether it's his product or not.
Well, you've definitely opened my eyes up in terms of some of the things to keep a lookout for. I mean, even doing these development podcasts for as long as I have, there's definitely been takeaways that you've mentioned there that I had no idea about. So it's incredible how important it is to do your due diligence when trying to invest or trying to purchase within a development or just purchasing a home, because it's such a massive purchase for you. And it's nice to know that there's agents out there such as yourselves that are more than happy to run through these things with clients and to take them through the key points and to impart that knowledge. So thank you so much for that, Rowan.
Cool. Chad, there is one thing that I could also maybe add, is in that documentation that we spoke about, in the development space, while we're on that, a lot of people have seen boards go up and developments planned, and then they never materialize or they never go ahead. And I think one of the things that people miss out on is if they look at their sales documentation, it's always important to look at what conditions the developer has placed and what provisions he has made for himself with regards to the number of pre-sales he requires before he actually commits to the project, which applications he needs to have approved before he goes to ground. Because often things, would be launched without the necessary approvals or pre-sales in place, which results in someone potentially selling their house or potentially, making financial decisions based on a project which is not yet 100% committed into proceeding. So that documentation that we spoke about, important to always go through that properly.
And that documentation, would you then be able to take that to the agent and talk to that agent about that documentation where they can point out things that you should possibly watch out for or things that need clarification on?
Yes, that 100%. That's the agent's role in the transaction, is to actually interpret that documentation and let you as a customer understand exactly what you're getting yourself into. So that is the agent's role, is to meet the needs of the seller as well as or take the needs of the seller and purchaser and align them in a way in which they both understand, to what they are committing. So definitely, any reputable agent would offer you that advice.
Perfect. Now, talking about Stonewood Village homes, can you talk to me about where they are based, where this development is based, and also why did you guys choose that location?
Okay, so based in the northern suburbs of Cape Town, the northern suburbs periphery, of the northern suburbs has always been a hotspot for developments in Cape Town. So coming from a big development that we did in Brackenfell, which is now, in the last 10 years, grown tremendously, land became, scarce, opportunities became scarce. So a lot of developers started looking northwards towards Durbanville, which is a very prominent town. There's been some big news in Durbanville with the first Kiro University being, established in town, known as the Stadio Multiversity. So that will be the first Kiro private university in South Africa. So a lot of focus moved towards that side of town. Likewise, so did ours and the developers that we deal with. So one of the developers that we deal with, as we've mentioned, Trinity Projects, who are doing Stonewood Village homes, they are very forward thinking in that way. And so they found land which had development rights already, but was underutilized. And they believed that the market could actually, maintain a better product than what was in that area. So, land was scarce, opportunities were scarce, but the right product came around at the right time. And they saw the opportunity to take that, reinvent it and actually provide a product which is suited to the market. So it came about, out of a investigation and looking for land out that way, but it came around at the right time to provide a product which no one else had in the market. So a year ago, there was no competition, in that segment of the market. So that was one of the driving factors to actually proceed with that development, because, between the developer and ourselves as agents, there was a lot of discussions, as to where the market's heading, what we project would be the next, sort of popular trend out this way. And Stonewood Village Homes suited that need, 100%. So that's how it came about. Our site is about 2 kilometers from where the new university is going to be. So it is where one wants to be, and from a developer seller side as well as a purchaser side. It's in a location which is great for capital growth in the future.
Well, Stonewood Village Homes, let's take a quick break so that everybody can get a good idea of what you are offering and how it looks. And when we come back, we'll start speaking about pricing, the amenities, and a little bit more features around it. So we will see you back right after this break. Afternoon and welcome back to the Developer Show. Today I'm joined by Rowan Alexander, who is showcasing their latest development called Stonewood Village Homes. Rowan is the founding member and principal director of the Alexander Swart Property Group. Rowan, thank you so much again for taking some time out to join us.
Cool. Good to be here.
Before we took that break, you were giving us some really good advice, but now we're going to come back and talk about this development that you're showcasing. You've given us a rundown of the development. You've given us a rundown of where it is and why you've chosen that location. Can you now give us a rundown of the pricing surrounding the different units in the development and what units and unit types have you got to offer?
Okay, great. So, Chad, we essentially got 4 different plans. 2 being plans with dry rooms and 2 being plans without dry rooms. So, being northern suburbs of Cape Town, everyone wants a braai. So we needed to make provision for that. So we've got 2 plans, an A and a B plan, starting off at 130 square meters, and it would go up to 158 square meters. The 130 square meter house is our A plan. The pricing starts at 1,913,000 for 130 square meters. And then our biggest plan in the development is 158 square meters, and that cost would be at 2,148,000. So that spread is about 1.9 to 2.15. The 4 different plans make provisions for different sizing and different budgets within the development. But I think that spectrum is very close. So it's going to depend upon clients' needs as well as their budgets as to which plan they end up going for. Our bigger product has been our most successful seller. Our D plan has been the most popular plan within the estate. And I think it's just simply due to the value for money that it offers. So we also need to be mindful and respectful that not everyone can afford the D plan. So we have to keep a spectrum of options available. All the houses are 3 bedrooms, double garage and 2 bathrooms. And I think we'll probably end up chatting now a bit more about what those homes offer. But I think that gives you a good idea of pricing. So size-wise, 130 to 158 square meters for the homes. And all the urban are roughly about 300 square meters.
When are you planning to complete phase 1?
Our phase 1 is sold out. So phase 1 to 4 is actually sold out. So phase 5 is currently, being sold. Maybe I'm understanding your question incorrectly, whether you're asking from a sales or construction point of view, but construction, phase 1 clients are moving in as we speak. So the first clients moved in about 2 weeks ago, and there's about 22 homes that need to be handed over within the next month, which mostly form part of phase 1 and phase 2. So we follow a methodology whereby every transaction runs its own natural course. So, once a bond is approved, we'd start with the building plan submissions as well as the transfer process for the land. So the land will be transferred into the client's name after 3 months, and then construction would start after that. So the homes that are now being completed in phase 1 are clients who had already signed up a year ago. Due to COVID, obviously that time period was extended, and they're busy moving in now, and subsequent phases will follow.
You definitely answered that question, because I did want to lead into this where you'd mentioned we were going to talk around the homes themselves. And the reason I asked about the phases is, what kind of customization is there within the home? So if I decide to purchase within phase 5, what can I change, or what can I discuss with you to change? What do you offer? And then let's move directly into what do those homes offer as it is.
Okay, so I'll try and combine that. The homes, as we've said already, I've said it a number of times: 3 bedrooms, double garage, 2 bathrooms, all of them. The specifications and the finishes are of a very good quality. So you won't necessarily, we find that most clients aren't necessarily interested in changing specification, but rather choosing within the ranges that we have. So to give you an idea of the type of finishing that you can expect, there's porcelain tiles throughout all the living areas. There's carpets in the bedrooms. We've got nice shadow line cornices right throughout the house. All the plumbing work is Hunch Grower taps. We've got solar geysers. We've got D5 stove oven extractor combination. We've got granite tops within the kitchens. All of the exterior doors are aluminium, so you've got no woodwork to maintain. Our garage doors are all electrified and sectional overhead alleys and garage doors. And then there's been a whole lot of design features which have been incorporated into the homes just to make them more livable. And I think that's things that people often overlook. For instance, the sliding door has windows next to the sliding door, and might sound like an absolutely silly thing to be mentioning, but you won't, the difference that makes to actually living in the home, to have a side light to open for natural ventilation rather than having to open the sliding door, is massive. And there's so many developments where there's actually just the sliding door without the side light. And it really sounds silly to have to mention something like that, but that's the small things that, you know, that are incorporated into design, which you don't necessarily pick up front. We've raised the floor to ceiling heights throughout all the homes to create more volume. So we're up to about 3 meter floor to ceiling heights in the bigger plans, which really gives you a nice sense of space within the homes. In terms of what you could then choose and customize, we go through a process with every client, looking at their needs and what they would prioritize. But they essentially have the opportunity to choose the floor coverings, the cupboards within the house, the different colors of the tops. You know, those would be the standard items which you would choose from, you know, within certain ranges. And then also we afford clients the opportunity to make changes. If they want to add a door into their main bedroom, which leads out into the garden, we can do things like that. You know, we can do certain customization. You know, we can't entertain a client designing his own whole new home within their estate because there are design guidelines, and there's also a reason why we can offer this product at this price, you know, because there is a level of standardization. But we can make it your own, we can make it unique, you know, as to the way that you would want as an owner occupier. You know, you want to make it your own, and we understand that, and we do allow that.
Look, the way you've offered this is, in my opinion, one of my favorite ways to offer development, whereas you give them different options, you give potential clients different options within a certain framework. So also it's not mind-boggling the amount of stuff that you can change, and you don't need to worry about possibly not changing something you feel like you want to change down the line because you've already thought of it. When you mentioned the windows next to the sliding doors, I understand exactly what you're talking about because I've come from a house that just had the sliding door into a house that now has windows next to the sliding door. And it's one of those things you don't notice until you've got it. You can have that security of having your sliding door locked with your windows open and having that ventilation. And it's really nice to see that the developers thought of these little quality of life offerings, and that's great to see.
Yeah. Then maybe just to touch on sort of the art, you know, we've spoken about the inside of the properties. On the outside, what we do is, you know, we cover the entire earth with grass, as well as, you know, paving at the patios, driveways and walkways into the house. And then we have the gardens in the front of the homes. So on the verge along the road, we have gardens, which are all landscape, and they are also irrigated from the dam. So you'll see on all the imagery, which we've sent, you know, to the clients, or which we can send to the clients, and you guys will have on your site. You'll see that there's a lot of open space within the development. That's probably one of the most unique features of this development, is that there's a lot of open space. You know, there's a massive dam. There's about 1 kilometer of walking paths within the estate. So there's a lot of, you know, space where people can live outside. And we've tried to make that one of the features of the development, is that the outside living is something to which, you know, you'd want to focus your home. So the outside space, you know, as I said, those gardens, we'll put in the irrigation, and the irrigation is actually done from the dam. There's also a borehole which fills up the dam. And again, this might not sound that relevant to people sitting throughout the country, but we have to remember that just 24 months ago, Cape Town was in the middle of a serious drought. You know, so having things like this that will allow your garden space and your properties to look presentable right throughout the year, you know, with an own sustainable source is something that's very, you know, that's important nowadays. As well as the security, you know, I think that's something which we need to touch on, you know, with regards to the particular properties. It is within a security estate. We have manned security, you know, with patrolling guards. There's biometric fingerprint access to the estate. Every guest is signed in, checked in, and called, you know, to the property owner before they're allowed in. There's electric fencing surrounding the entire estate, and then also, you know, a camera system. So with that focus being on creating quality of living, you know, within that space, it's important that that space needs to be secure too, because we find a lot of young families moving into that area.
I think security is one of the biggest things on everybody's mind when they're moving to developments. And I think it's also a key selling feature for developments, is that you get that security that freestanding households just don't have, or can't offer to the same extent. specifically within the price points you offer your developments from. But keeping to the outside theme, what other amenities are available to customers that are going to purchase within this development?
Okay, so within the developments, I think, we've covered the things like the walking paths, the parks, the kickabout, the dam, and a lot of beautiful landscaping throughout. So that would be within the estate. And then around, the surrounding area, there's a lot of shopping facilities. I mean, I think within a 1 kilometer radius, you'd cover brands like Woolworths, Checkers, Pick n Pay, Spar. All of the major brands have prominent shopping, within the vicinity. There's good schooling. You have a number of schooling options, especially from the Kiro group, which is very popular out this way at the moment. There's 2 different Kiro schools. And then I think the biggest draw card in that area for future potential is the fact that the university will be constructed 2 kilometers from our doorstep. So it is an area which is undergoing a development and transition, with a lot of offerings in the area, and which would still be established. From an accessibility point of view, it's nice because if you're based in Cape Town, heading out of the northern suburbs of Cape Town, or even the prominent landmarks being the Brackenfell, Durbanville, Bellville, Tiger Valley areas, all of those are very easily accessible from our site. There's also a hospital, private hospital just down the road, a Mediclinic hospital. So it's really a very self-sustained area.
So we have a first-time buyers show that airs on Wednesdays. And if you're on that first-time buyers show, speaking directly to people who are looking to purchase their first homes, what would you say that makes developments one of the better choices for somebody looking to purchase their first home?
Okay, so I think something that people need to consider is, we always speak about the saving, when you buy a new house. So to say, well, if I buy new, I'm not going to be paying transfer duties, so that's a substantial saving. There's a number of things which that actually unlocks. The one is that the cash element that's needed to actually become a property owner, that requirement is a lot less, because traditionally, if you buy a second-hand home, you'd have to finance those costs. So looking at a new development, the fact that you need less cash to actually enter the market, I think that is one of the attractive points to be in a new development. Another thing that you need to look at is, it's not just that cash element. If you go and look at how long it's going to take your bond to capitalize the equivalent of the transfer duty. So if you're saving 100,000 Rand or 80,000 Rand on transfer costs, if you take how long it's going to take your bond to reduce by 80,000 Rand, it's about the equivalent of 3 years worth of repayments. So you're not just saving the 80,000 Rand, it has a large effect on that overall ownership cost. But then again, new developments, there's a lower life cycle costing. Within that first 5 to 7 years, 10 years, your maintenance costs would be a lot lower than on a second-hand house. So again, it's that cash element, that it needs your investment, which would be a lot lower. Previous generations stayed in homes for 20 years, worked at certain jobs for 20 years. That was a lot more the tendency in the past. Nowadays, people are moving homes every 5 to 7 years. That's on average. So if you're buying in a new development and you fall within that framework, what it does allow you to do is to actually move without having costs of upgrade. 5 to 7 years down the line, the property would still be new enough to achieve a good market value without having to reinvest. And what we also find is that new developments, areas where there's new developments, new development nodes, tend to have good capital growth because it's driven by the cost of construction, the replacement cost. And the replacement cost drive will always be there. So that helps you achieve good capital growth. So new developments, there's a lot of pros, for it, especially for first-time buyers, where the interest rates, as low as what they are now. If you're able to find a project which suits your needs, the accessibility to that market due to not having those upfront costs, I think plays a huge role.
Absolutely. I think also a lot of people try and mitigate that savings if they are purchasing within a freestanding household on houses that maybe look slightly out of date, thinking that the money they're saving on purchasing this house that's slightly out of date, they'll utilize then on performing different refurbishments And then they realize that life kind of gets in the way and they don't have the time. And a house that looks kind of out of date now looks very, very out of date in 10 years' time when they decide to move. And you're completely avoiding that if you decide to purchase within a development, because you guys are already providing houses that are cutting edge, super modern, really nice, and speaks towards the people now looking to purchase houses, where they don't need to worry about trying to renovate or trying to change things. They're purchasing a house that has already been made according to their needs. You're offering them different packages. And in 10 years' time, not only have they saved on their transfer duty, they're leaving knowing that they've got an investment. You know, they've made some capital gains. You've mentioned how the university is being built. There's schools there. There's all these things that speak quite big into the investments of these properties.
Yeah, Chad, and I think, you know, something that we can never retrofit is modern design guidelines. You know, there's things, there's certain framework within which new homes are developed, you know, with percentages of window space to floor area, you know, for heat transmission and heat and loss in and out of the homes, which makes your house more efficient from an energy perspective. There's things like the solar geysers and the, you know, just from a design perspective, which you would never be able to retrofit, or you could retrofit into an existing house, but the cost would never outweigh the benefit. So from a new perspective, you ensure that you're always buying the latest design guidelines, which would help with efficiency and the life cycle costing of those homes.
So now, to close off, I wanted to ask you, Rowan, how is private property and your relationship with private property influenced the way you market properties as agents?
It's been great. A bit of background about myself. I was actually with a private property group a number of years ago before I started out as an agent. So you know, it's been awesome to be able to continue that relationship even once we had moved along. So private property has been core, you know, in most of the development work that we've done. We've got a very good working relationship with a group in the brand. And one of the portals where we can really showcase, you know, what we have on offer. So it's been great. So thanks for that. You know, it's always good to work with you guys.
We're looking forward to continuing this fruitful relationship. So that is Rowan Alexander from the Alexander Swart Property Group, and he was showcasing the Stonewood Village homes, which is in the Stonewood estate in the northern suburbs of Cape Town. Rowan, thank you once again for making some time for us on this interview.
Cool. Thanks, Chad.
So for everybody tuning in, please don't shy away for taking a look at this development. You can see it on private property. All the details will also be within this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with us, and I look forward to seeing you all again this time next week. Thank you and goodbye.